Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Newman. I'm Professor of Space Law and Policy at the University of Northumbria in Newcastle in the United Kingdom. I'm also International Space Law Advisor for Coalstar Technologies.
I'm Robbie Boundy, founder of Space Impulse.
Hi, I'm Raphael Rodkin, founder of E2MC Space Ventures.
I listen to the Coalstar Project.
And I listen to the Coalstar Project.
And I listen to the Coalstar Project.
And the amount of times in the early days, literally the first couple of months when I was having my first seed investors get interested in Oxford Space Systems, the amount of time an investor would literally just knock on the door and walk into our office unannounced because of the particular location we were in. I needed, my smart engineers that could instantly jump up and kind of shake the hand and smile and kind of not kind of mumble and look at their feet. Everybody is a salesman, I think, in the first days of an early stage business.
It's time for another episode, flickering of the Coalstar Project. We've got those UK connections. I'm here with Mike Lawton. He is the founder at Oxford Space Systems. And here's something cool. He is Barclay's Bank's UK Startup Entrepreneur for 2018 for the progress and achievements of Oxford Space Systems. Thanks for being here, Mike.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. So I was excited to connect with you because we're going to move in season 3 of the Coalstar Project to talking with venture capitalists who fund space companies. And with your background and the things you talk about, I have discerned that you are kind of in between the regular space business owner and a VC. You seem to have a lot of knowledge in the fundraising area.
Yeah.
So why don't we begin, I guess, between, I'm going to refer to your LinkedIn profile here. Explain the difference for us, if you could, between Oxford Space Systems and Oxford Dynamics. These are two companies and they seem to be operating in parallel.
So Oxford Space Systems is the entity that I founded just over 6.5 years ago when I spotted an opportunity that I think was untapped in the space sector. And I noticed that as satellites were getting smaller and smaller, I noticed that the one neglected area was with antenna systems. And fortunately, the laws of physics prevail. So it doesn't matter how small you make that satellite, you've still got to maintain what we call a link budget, which is your ability to talk to the ground. And I didn't see anybody actually optimizing antennas. So I thought, well, okay, there's maybe a niche there for a novel antenna company that can tackle that problem head on. Who's going to make the world's most storage efficient antennas? And that was really the foundation story behind Oxford Space Systems. And a lot of hubris in the industry from the incumbents. Don't bother starting the business, Mike. We're going to crush you. And to my ears, that was music, because I thought you're only going to say that if there's a business worth defending. So that energized me even more. So long story short, here we are 6.5 years later with Oxford Space Systems being one of the highest valued tech startups in the UK, a team of 50 really smart people, our own custom premises, largest clean room at the Harwell Space Cluster, and contracts internationally. So OSS is very much on a really interesting growth trajectory. So along that journey, I had many engagements with the VC community, as you might imagine. But like a lot of companies, it gets to a certain point and the founder perhaps isn't the most appropriate character to have in that business. So didn't exactly fall out with the VCs, but it was clear that maybe it was time that I kind of moved on. So I said, no big falling out, but I still remained associated with Oxford Space Systems in an ad hoc advisory capacity, and of course I'm still the founder. But that then gave me the opportunity to go and start another business, which is Oxford Dynamics. So some of the ideas that weren't appropriate or mature enough really for Oxford Space Systems to look at, that's what Oxford Dynamics will be doing and is doing. So that's going to develop its own portfolio of intellectual property.
Okay. Can you give us a sneak peek into what one of those areas might be?
Yes, so there is a slight connection to space. What Oxford Dynamics is working on are some very novel ideas to do with drone technology. These are associated with increasing the commercial viability of drones when they're used in dense urban applications. And also the technology has applications for the defense and security communities. I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit too vague here, but there's a lot of IP riding
Yeah.
on the idea, and I'm currently going through the process of protecting the IP. So I'll leave it at that. It's going to be some neat drone technology.
Okay.
There's also an idea to do with personal protection equipment, PPE, that I actually had around about 4 or 5 years ago. And with the whole explosion with coronavirus and COVID-19, it seemed a great time to dust off that idea as well. And that's actually been presented to the UK government. And I'll know actually tomorrow whether that idea receives some initial seed funding. So yeah, exciting times.
Well, if so, you'll have to come back and tell us about it. So there's a question about antennae that I did want to ask that's not included on our list because I'd forgotten about it and I just remembered. A lot of people, myself included, get the idea when you think of an antenna as like a car antenna, like not the shark fin thing, but the tall, thin thing. And I remember looking at some small sat pictures from an assembly plant, and they had an antenna there that looked like 2 balls of yarn kind of clustered together like 2 fists, and it was coiled, right? And like, so I remember, I know nothing about this particular subject. Can antenna really look like that?
You probably saw it in its stowed. You probably saw it in its stowed configuration rather than deployed. So with it's CubeSats, I think, basically grabbing the headlines, and CubeSats is about how can we do things as cheap and as quickly as possible. So rather inelegant ways of storing what are probably, you've just described, a large dipole antennas. So when that thing is allowed to explosively release in space, it should end up, hopefully, having a much more uniform architecture for its elements.
Okay, so it's just bundled that way for transport, and then once it releases, it'll look like what we know and love.
It should do. You can imagine some customers are a little bit nervous about having antennas deploy in a chaotic manner. The industry loves predictability. So that would be the bargain basement way of stowing an antenna that you've just described.
Interesting. Okay. It looked very cool, and the guys were wearing all their, static-free equipment and that kind of thing. So let's move into business management side of things. I really want to find out about your perspective, Mike, on this, because I think you have a very good one. Other than the lifeblood of cash, which is an obvious one, what other measures have you seen as important in your area of focus, which you say is early stage, high-tech businesses?
I think out of the trap, it's about getting that right team, getting the right team initially. That dynamic is so important. And I've learned that no one will have the same level of fire in their belly as perhaps the founder. But there's a trick in finding those really enthusiastic people to come and work with you initially. And I've been very lucky at doing that. And although you want really smart people with a strong air of specialism, maybe it's aerospace engineering or materials, you actually also want people that don't mind mucking in. So some great all-rounders. And the amount of times in the early days, literally the first couple of months when I was having my first seed investors get interested in Oxford Space Systems, the amount of time an investor would literally just knock on the door and walk into our office unannounced because of the particular location we were in. I needed, my smart engineers that could instantly jump up and kind of shake the hand and smile and kind of not kind of mumble and look at their feet. Everybody is a salesman, I think, in the first days of an early stage business. So that great all-rounder characteristics is what I look for as well. And if I could wave my magic wand, they'd be fantastic on stage talking about the technology, but then they also don't mind popping back to the office and cleaning the toilets before the investor comes around for a bit of due diligence. So great all-rounders, a lot of enthusiasm, and hopefully people that like that level of challenge will stay with the business as it grows. Because I'm sure as a business matures, you then start to need different types of talent coming in. But I think it's great if you can hang on to that core team, because they do instill a certain mentality and enthusiasm throughout the business.
Okay.
And the other thing you need is a lot of luck as well.
Okay.
Right place, right time. Actually, my lead investor in Oxford Space Systems, that was a chance meeting in a coffee shop, believe it or not. And I started talking to him, and I said, "Well, you want to hear about my space business then, if you're an investor?" And he actually said, "Mike, let me just stop you there. I don't do space because it takes too long and costs too much. But I'm going to walk to my next meeting, so you've got 2 minutes to convince me otherwise. And that's what I did.
Yikes.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you need a lot of luck, a lot of chance meetings, and you go to parties. You never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, but you've got that 30-second commercial ready to go there.
Yeah, that's the other thing I say to any budding entrepreneur and founder. Yeah, have your 10-second pitch, your 30-second pitch, and then that 2-minute conversation that you can literally just do on autopilot, because you never know who you're going to bump into. Yeah.
Right. Is there anything specific that you do during interviews to identify that kind of well-rounded person who's ready to jump into any role?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I ask a lot about kind of personal interests and examples of how they've helped other people. And I ask them to describe situations in previous employment. What was the one thing that kind of most annoyed you about a previous place of employment? But then more importantly, what did you do to resolve that? Are you someone who wants to help solve problems? And that kind of flushes out whether they're a good fit. And the other thing I've learned to flush out whether a great fit is, I say, if I can give you a whiteboard at one end, draw a line at one end, that's the maximum salary you can take out of the business, but there's absolutely no shares, no equity involved with that. At the other end, that's maximum equity and literally kind of subsistence salary. Kind of where would you put yourself on that board? And if it goes straight to paying me the maximum amount I can have in my bank account at the end of each month, they're probably not right for the startup. They're just kind of chasing the dollar.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, but they're probably not the best fit for a startup business where you want people bought into that long-term journey. And that's always been a great filter, I think.
I like that one. I haven't heard that one before. So very, very cool.
And for interns, actually, yeah, when I get into it, because I get inundated with folks at university wanting to come and join. So how do you pick the smart interns that hopefully you can then turn into future employees? So now anybody who wants to do a placement, I forego kind of looking at CVs and things initially. I say, send me a 2-minute pitch video. Tell me what you're going to do for my business, which means they need to go and research the markets we're in rather than just the normal closed way of just summarizing a CV. Right. Because all due respect to anybody studying at university, they're all pretty much carbon copies of everybody. Everybody's got a great CV. You've all studied the same subject. You'll get roughly the same grade. So how the hell do I differentiate? So a 2-minute pitch video. And I always say when I send the brief, at the end of the video, tell me your best geek joke. And that really flushes out the personality. And I've had phenomenally good videos. One guy ended up said, if you want to know the punchline, you've got to interview me, which showed a lot of personality.
The open loop. I love it. I love it. The copywriter in me thinks that's fantastic. So, very cool. Going back to your LinkedIn profile, Mike, the first line of your About section talks about, this is a quote, getting things wrong slightly less often than I get them right. And I appreciated that honesty, that honest perspective. So the question I've got for you is, how do you know when you've gotten things wrong? What are the indicators and how have you learned to see them sooner?
You know what, there's always an amount of time that elapses from a decision till you've got it wrong. And I think the skill comes in, how quickly can you compress that time down so you can steer the ship back on the right course? And I know, especially in engineering circles, we try to be incredibly analytical and we try and quantify decisions. But I think the more times I've been involved in businesses and decision making, the more and more, I'm leaning towards trusting my gut feel. And I think, we probably have a gut feel for a reason. Millions of years of evolution have evolved that feeling. And I think it's a great way of perhaps filtering through some of those decisions. So if it feels wrong, it probably is going to be wrong. So that's my kind of evolved filter, if you like.
Awesome. Well, I'm speaking with Mike Lawton of Oxford Space Systems, Oxford Dynamics. I'm curious here, what you believe drives technological innovation? Is it more marketplace interests or is it personal interests of individuals wanting to go out there and change the world?
Well, I think it's actually both. So I think if it's in a startup, an entrepreneur, then I think it's a desire to really change the world. I don't think there's anything more frustrated than an entrepreneur. You know, the world won't change fast enough to their view of thinking. And I think that's a great driver for technological change. But those innovations that we end up actually hearing about obviously have to be underpinned by a solid business model. I think there's enough entrepreneurs out there that probably have started their first businesses, but maybe have not focused perhaps as strong as they should have done on the business case as well. Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, a lot of tech entrepreneurs are driven by a desire to change the world, but then very quickly that business model driven by hard economics kicks in.
Right. Yeah, we see this a lot in space, where the interest in developing a technological capability is where it starts. So that's what I've seen is the interest in developing technical capabilities, and then the sudden realization of, we've got to make some money with this.
Right. Someone's got to buy this. Yeah.
Right. So you really do need a customer, folks. Build it and they will come is really not the way the world works, despite what the movie says. So what organizations, Mike, are you watching in UK NewSpace?
Yeah, I think we've got a really exciting ecosystem in the UK, and it seems every week you can read about a new UK company bursting onto the scene. I think that's a great reflection of how the government has supported the space sector. I think there's 10 sectors they want to grow as they see as strategically important to the UK. So space is one of those benefactors. I think one company that I'm really quite interested in, because I know the guys that founded it, and this is In-Space Missions Limited, founded by two of the ex-directors from Surrey Satellite Technology. They left and founded In-Space about a year and a half ago now, I think it is. And what the guys are doing, they are operating in a really niche area of working out that there are a number of people developing payloads that ultimately will perhaps need their own constellation. So they're providing a one-stop shop of getting your payload on orbit quicker and cheaper than other folks have done before. And their secret is they've designed their own highly configurable, highly scalable bus. And they've done some neat things inside in terms of the technology to massively collapse the amount of interconnects and harnessing. So it's quite an elegant solution to get payloads on orbit quickly. And if that particular configuration works out, then that automatically becomes the satellite that perhaps you'll want to commission for your constellation. So it's a great way of getting that first IOD money, but then being able to build out and supply constellations for customers globally. And because of the way they've structured the company, it means they are really attractive to the UK MOD. And the MOD, the Ministry of Defence in the UK, really wants to start maximizing its use of space for sovereign defense implications. And the way In-Space have structured their business, this scalable platform actually hits the sweet spot of what the MOD wants to achieve as well. So it's a lovely little business model they put together, growing rapidly. And I think a great sign that they're getting things right is that investors are approaching them to see if there's interest in external capital.
Okay. What is the art behind you there? It's a black and white print.
Oh, that, yeah.
Vaguely rocketish.
It's actually, yeah, it's I bought that when I was in the US at the Kennedy Space Center. It's actually one of the first, sketches or technical drawings of the Apollo launcher. So it's one of NASA's official technical drawings now available to buy. Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, when you it's big too. It looks 3x4 or something like that.
Yeah, it's quite a big picture. And I've actually got another one on the other wall of the lander, the lunar lander module. It's great to see kind of hand-drawn technical drawings. Just kind of remind you how far we've come, but just how ambitious those projects were, I think.
Right. And and now we don't have to worry quite so much about tolerances and drawings and fitting layers together because we've got AutoCAD. Oh boy.
I spoke to a guy at the Kennedy Space Center, and he we're near one of the kind of rocket engines, and he said, "You know what? We could never build these again today." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, well, these were artisan. We had kind of the drawings, but for them to actually work, there was a lot of skill in handcrafting, machining the components. All that skills have now retired or unfortunately died. So there's no way we could build these engines today. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, we will have to adapt or relearn or something, Yeah.
We read about, losing technologies from ancient civilizations. You think, how is that possible? And you think, well, actually, we managed to lose the technology from, just 50 years ago.
Right. I wasn't going to go there, but you did. So that's cool. I remember seeing a video about, I think it was a Dutch company that had developed some kind of mesh product that could be very hot on one side and would not transfer the heat to the other. And it had been around since I think the 60s or something. And they had lost the technology to make this thing. And you can think about how many applications that could be useful in. So
I thought
it's happening more often.
I thought you were going to start describing a magical product called Starlight. That's now kind of infamous stuff. Have you heard about Starlight?
No. Huh.
It's a great story. It's on Wikipedia, and if you Google, or if you go onto YouTube and just Google Starlight, and that's LIT on the end, it was actually invented, believe it or not, by a British hairdresser, a very eccentric inventor. And he claimed he'd come up with a very cheap thermal coating that could outperform anything on the market. And at the time, with this crazy live science TV program in the UK called Tomorrow's World. So he was kind of brought on the program as kind of like the joke element. He's going to fail in this live demonstration. And he got an egg and he painted it with this kind of Starlight stuff, got out a blowtorch, literally got one side of the coating glowing red hot, instantly took the blowtorch away and cracked it, and it was completely liquid. And that completely exploded interest in the product in Starlight. He had NASA chasing all the defense guys, but he would never reveal the formulation. And every deal people tried to do with him fell through. And the secret of Starlight was taken to his grave. And he claimed it needed no exotic materials. It was a combination of hairdressing chemicals and products you could find in a domestic kitchen. Crazy stuff.
Another use for fish oil, folks.
Yeah.
Wow. This is Jason Kanigan from Cold Star Tech, and I'm excited to share with you a new offer from Cold Star that we are bringing out to help both space founders and venture capitalists who fund space companies. And it's on two levels. The lower level is a VC who is looking at possibly funding a space company, but they just don't get it. Right? And a lot of tech founders want to come out and create some sort of technical capability, but they do not understand business. And so you'll look and you'll go, where's the customer here? Where's the business model? And they'll go, but I want to make rockets or something, right? And it's really cool. Well, that, as we know from the dot-com era, is not a viable business model. And so you bring us in. We've got great technical expertise on the space side, folks who have done this sort of assessment before, like our technical engineering advisor, Dr. Rick Fleeter, myself in the process engineering field, plenty of other people with brains to look at this problem so that you don't have to blow your brains out trying to figure out how to make this work. And on the company side, it's a benefit for them because we will show them the roadmap to how you're going to get funded, how you will want to fund them, what changes to make to get VCs excited about putting money in. And so that's good for you. Right? The second level is at a deeper and higher level at the same time. It is for venture capitalists who have given a seed round to a company, a space company, and that has gone on for a little while, 6 months, a year, something like that. And it is time, as COVID has made it, to double down or get out. Those are pretty much the choices, right? It's time to invest further in a thing we already know, which seems to be the direction VCs are going in right now. They don't seem to want to look at new things or stop, just kill the project. And so the good news is, in that situation, there's a lot more going on. There's more meat for Cold Star experts to get in and analyze, right? You're going to have processes in place, whether they know it or not. We'll be able to flowchart those and maybe accurately document them for the first time so we can get some kind of value chain going in the organization. We'll be able to test whether the leadership is the right group of people or whether you're missing something, the strategic direction, the business model, all this stuff. So if this sounds interesting to you, reach out to us. You can email me at jason@coldstartech.com or just connect with me and message me on LinkedIn.
That's probably the best way to do it. And I am excited to talk to you. The kind of transformation that we're able to offer here is beyond anything you'll see out there. And as a VC, this will save you so much time and energy, right? Like if you're a VC and you've got 100 companies to look at, you've got 3 days a year to look at each one, maybe, right? That's not really good enough, is it? Wouldn't it be better to have experienced, expert space people who understand space, right? Look at this investment and tell you, here's a grade, right? Here are several grade areas. Is this thing ready to pour gasoline on the fire, or is it just going to go up in smoke? This is Jason Kanigan from Cold Star Tech. Let's get back to the interview.
Well, speaking of sort of making up things in a cauldron like that, you talk about the dark arts of raising finance for tech businesses. Let's educate our space listeners on some concepts in this area. Where do you begin? What is the dark arts of raising finance? I mean, obviously, it's all got to be legal. Where do you start with this definition?
Yeah. So I think the number one mistake I see when tech entrepreneurs pitch for money, they always talk about the great technology they've developed, and they love talking about the features of the technology. And that's completely understandable because, they live and breathe the tech, and that's what gets them excited. But they don't understand that the audience they're in front of wants to know how you're going to make them rich. Mm-hmm. It's not about how great your technology is, it's about the business case. So when I was pitching Oxford Space Systems, I always talked about the pain of the problem I was solving, and I translated that into hard financial value for my end customer. I almost let the investors say, well, okay, Mike, what is the damn technology then? So I almost kind of get the investors to kind of open up the conversation. So I think the number one rule for the dark art is talk about the business case, show that you understand how investors think. And that will transform, I think, any pitch. Right. I think the kind of dark art lesson number 2, we touched on it earlier, and that's learn to summarize. You should get that pitch off in 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and 60 seconds, and a couple of minutes tops. And I think I've got it down to I must have it down to fine art from the quantum of money we've raised for OSS. But I won a NASA technology pitch competition, and you were given 180 seconds, and at the end of 180 seconds, the Jaws theme would play, and they would literally drag you off the stage, and you had to articulate your entire business case. So who's going to buy it, how you're going to develop the technology, market traction, and then, of course, exit strategy, and getting all that down in 3 minutes without any techno jargon and babble is an art. So I advise any tech entrepreneur that if you can nail that, then you're pretty much home and dry, assuming your business case stacks up, of course.
Right. I love it. And we've, again, some of this stuff will sound basic when we say it, but look around, right? Go out there and look at what founders of companies actually do. And it's not just in space, it's in software as a service, tech development, all kinds of places where folks who want to change the world, super excited, and like you say, justifiably so, about what they're developing. But at the end of the day, it's far less important to the investors than the business model, and you're explaining your understanding of that in a concise way. So, wow. Any other things that folks should be looking at in that finance area?
Scalability, proving or demonstrating you understand what scalability means, a sustainable commercial business. And I think this is acutely true in the space sector. I think there's still a strong perception from investors, well, isn't this just kind of one-off science missions or just ones and twosies here? Where are you actually going to sell 500 of these, 3,000 of these bits of technology? Show me your expanding customer base. Get me excited about the size of this potential market. So if you're pitching, especially if it's hardware, understanding how you scale hardware into a production environment, because that's another skill set completely from the R&D world. So showing that you understand scalability and sustainability of a commercial business model is absolutely critical as well.
Okay. Mike, are there any books or video presentations or something that you've seen recently that you would recommend other people go look at?
I actually spend a lot of time looking at material outside of the technology sphere. So I've been looking at a lot of material a lot of TED Talks, actually. I love the TED Talks. And I love things on emotional intelligence, about understanding how to engage and judge reactions from the audience. I can't think of a specific video that's jumping to mind at the moment, but I would suggest to any tech entrepreneur, break away from the tech a little bit and understand the emotional intelligence angle to your work and what you're trying to achieve. And there's tons of great stuff out there, especially from the TED stage on emotional intelligence.
Right. Well, let's finish up then with a question to dig in a little bit on that, because I think it's important to you, obviously, and I can attest to the value of it. People don't make decisions rationally. They think they do, but and they justify rationally, but they make them emotionally. So what would you like to share about the value of understanding emotional intelligence and applying it in a fundraising situation?
I think this applies mainly to males. Actually, men don't like admitting that when they're wrong, when we make mistakes. It's that classic alpha male ego. So I think having a bit of hubris, knowing that you make mistakes, and being honest that you are fallible as well. And you know what? Cut other people some slack as well. Especially if you're building a team, you are going to make mistakes. This is unexplored territory. You should be pushing the envelope. So allow other people the latitude to make mistakes as well. Because you know what? Life is a journey, and we're all on this journey for once, and we're never going to come back this way again. So we're all constantly learning. So I think if you realize that and just be a little bit more kind of honest with yourself, honest with people around you, and I think that honesty then echoes in the eyes, or is seen in the eyes of the investors. They don't suspect that there's any BS there. You're admitting you make mistakes. Perhaps you show a few of the mistakes you've made along the way to get in front of this investor. And I think showing that you're not some kind of infallible Superman, I think is much, much more important, I think, to an investor than pretending that you're infallible and you're going to change the world without making a single mistake.
Right. Right. Yeah. A little self-honesty is good. And this humility that you're heading.
Bit of humility, a bit of honesty. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think the world would be a better place if we just admit, we do screw up a lot.
Right. Right. Well, awesome. Well, this has been Mike Lawton, the founder at Oxford Space Systems and something new called Oxford Dynamics. Mike, where can people connect with you or find out more about Oxford Dynamics?
Well, we have a website. It is www.oxdynamics, so oxdynamics.com. And of course, on LinkedIn, you can track me down. As we said earlier, I've got a filter on there that says, unless I've met with you, I probably won't connect with you. But that's just to hopefully filter out some of the time wasters and the people trying to sell me perpetual motion machines and zero gravity, but most rational, sane people I connect with. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Mike, thanks for being here and sharing some of your knowledge today.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. Been fun.
Hey, this is Jason Kanigan, the host of the program. Thanks a lot for listening to the Cold Start Project. If you want me to send you new episodes of the Cold Start Project so that you don't have to go hunting around for them or watching YouTube or anything like that, go to this page, coldstartech.com/MSB. That's short for Make Space Boring, which is what we're all about. And drop in your email address there, and I will be able to do that for you. Make Space Boring is another little show that I run. It's a shorter format, quick interviews, and news of the day, and sometimes an update of who I'm meeting and what I'm learning in the space field. It's on the same Cold Start Tech channel. Speaking of which, on the YouTube channel, I can do something I cannot do on the audio-only version, which is add playlists. And so there may be topic area playlists on the YouTube channel that you would be interested in digging into and going down the rabbit hole and learning more about. For example, space law and policy, space situational awareness, lunar mining and construction and fun stuff like that. So go check that out. That is at coldstartech.com/play. That's the short link to get there. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you soon.